This is something I look back on, which terrifies me and I can't forget about it. For some quick background, but not enough to bore you. I live in a city not too far from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Me and my friends were 15 and 16 at the time. There's multiple parts to this story, so I'll start with this one. It was a Friday night in November. My three friends, Devin, Jackson, and CJ, came over to watch the Toronto Raptors game. We had a couple of beers and ordered a pizza and had a good time. I wish the story ended there. At halftime, Devin proposed the idea of sneaking out to go smoke a joint. We weren't regular smokers at the time. The Raptors faced a Western team, so it was about 12 o'clock a.m. when we were ready to head out. Off we went. We walked down my street, which leads to a main one. This main street is connected to a mall, which is less than 2 kilometers from my house. We found a spot in the mall parking lot on some large rocks and played some music while Devin rolled a joint. Being superstitious about getting caught, we all noticed a red pickup truck pull into the parking lot and begin to slowly drive in wide circles. CJ said he had a bad feeling and that we should leave, but the rest of us laughed it off as we sparked a joint. Our laughing quickly faded as the truck began to approach us slowly, then completely accelerating full speed towards us. We all stood up as chills ran down my spine. The truck then slammed on the brakes right beside us as all my friends had ran 3 meters into the grass by now. I was completely frozen in terror. Like I said, I wasn't a heavy smoker and it was hitting me pretty hard. The driver's side door flew open and a man jumped out with a baseball bat in his hand. I'll never forget the face I saw. It was a man who I can call truly insane. Eyes wider than I've ever seen, cuts all over his face, and the widest smile which revealed about 6 teeth. I snapped out of it as he began to sprint towards me, screaming at the top of his lungs. My friends were on their way back to me, ready to drag me if they had to. We began to sprint through the field, which led back to the main road, all the while hearing him scream incoherent words at the top of his lungs. We jumped a fence, which led to a complex, hid in a bush, and heard him speed up and down the road. I was ringing 911 as Devin took my phone, hung up and said, "You really want your mom to know we snuck out, bro?" To be honest, I didn't even care if she knew because I feared for my life. He grabbed my hand and we began jumping through people's backyards and got to my street in what felt like only a minute. We got back to my house when there was about 8 minutes left in the third quarter. We all sat down and being dumb kids, we decided not to call the police. We even began laughing about it. I don't know why any of us tried laughing it off. I clearly saw that they were just as scared as I was. There was no way I was letting any of them walk home alone that night, so I let them all sleep over. We finally got comfortable again and the game was getting interesting until there was 4 minutes left. I got a call from another friend of ours named Adam. Adam lives about a 5-minute walk from my house. He was screaming into the phone explaining his story. He had an encounter with the same exact man as us, but I think his story is much more terrifying. It was around 1 a.m. when he decided to walk to a local gas station for a drink and a snack, all by himself. He began walking down a street and cut through our high school football field, which is next to the parking lot. He saw the red truck driving in circles and thought it was just some guy trying to learn how to drift or something. He had his flashlight on, which might have been how the man spotted him. Out of nowhere, the truck turned its high beams on and began flooring it towards his direction. Instinctively, Adam begins sprinting as fast as he can back in the direction of his house, and the truck gets within 50 feet of him. The man jumps out of the truck and begins sprinting at him on foot. Adam turned and saw his horrific face. Luckily, he's athletic as well and had no problem outrunning the guy. Once he heard the truck start back up, he ran into a creek area and dove behind a bush. Not too long after hearing the truck come to a complete stop and the door open again, footsteps slowly came and stopped about 15 feet away from him as he heard a phone begin to ring. This is the part that I question Adam about all the time because it's just so scary for me that I don't want to believe him. He said that a conversation broke out which led to an argument he could barely understand. The man finished it off by yelling, "Someone's coming back with me tonight, alright?" He then ran the rest of the way home, called the police, and then called us. I don't even want to think of what could have happened to me or my friends if anyone was taken by that guy. Nobody went missing in the weeks after this, so I don't think he caught anyone. I hope this man gets the mental help he needed, but I have no sympathy for someone who's trying to kidnap kids. If he was rotting in a jail cell, that would be good as well. Every name in this story has been changed for privacy reasons. When I was a freshman in high school, I always felt pretty safe. This was until about halfway through the year. I openly told everyone that my experience was so much better than middle school, and as far as I know, there has never been a lockdown at this school ever. I'm a theater kid, and this was just a few days before the show, and this means we do this thing called teasers, where we get the whole day off of school and pretty much just show snippets of that, so they might want to come and see it. During our second showing, there was an announcement. Lockdown, lockdown, this is not a drill. It was the principal's voice. I was about to go on stage. I could see that the other people on stage were confused and didn't know what to do. Eventually, our teacher, Miss Thunderbird, told everyone to get to the green room, which is a workroom backstage, and she would handle the kids in the audience. Luckily on this day, it was a smaller audience, so we all made it to the green room, but none of the freshmen had ever had a lockdown drill in the theater, so some of us didn't know what to do. Me and two others, one boy and one girl, had just ran to the dressing rooms to hide. We soon heard another student, Ava, and another person in the play shouting for a few of us as we were missing. We peeked our heads out and saw that she was ushering us all inside the prop closet, across the hall, and all three of us sprinted inside. We closed and locked the door, but it was pitch black in there, surrounded by all the other kids. There was whimpering, but we were trying to stay quiet. A little information about me is that at this point I wasn't allowed to have a phone. I know it sounds like torture from my parents, but I did have a watch. Not some Apple Watch though. It was called a Gizmo watch. Basically, you could only send pre-programmed messages to people, and you could only have 9 people in your contacts. Not only did they have no "Hey mom, we're in a lockdown," but I had left it in my locker in the dressing room. Only a few people had their phones, and only some of them were generous enough to lend them to the people that didn't so they could text their families. I was lucky enough to get some help as a third person. I texted my mom and she said she was on her way. 2 of the older kids, a junior named Peter and Ava, grabbed makeshift weapons from the prop closet, fire pokers and things like that. They were standing at the door waiting for anything or anyone. One girl, the girl that lent me her phone, was talking with her dad, who was apparently tapped into a police scanner. She was feeding us the information, telling us that they started off at the gym, which was on the other side of the school. Then they moved to the library in the middle. And then after that, they were at the science hallway, and right around the corner from the theater. Somebody shouted, "They're coming for us." The only senior and our stage director, the one in charge, told her to shut up and stop giving us the updates. The stage director had frozen up. Speaking with her afterwards revealed that she couldn't move, and she was scared because she knew if somebody did come in, Peter and Ava would have been the first 2 killed, and it would be her fault. We were all sitting there in the dark, scared, confused, and crying, and worried that we would die. After like 30 minutes, we heard footsteps coming up to us. All of us wanted to scream, but we couldn't. Then we heard our teacher's voice. "Okay, everyone, it's Miss Thunderbird. I'm unlocking the door. It's safe to come out now. We are going to exit through the loading dock," which was a door in the green room that leads outside, "and we are going to be okay. If the shooter was making me open the door, by the way, I would have used a fake name, okay?" It was nice that she said that, because I think it relieved us all a little bit. She opened the door and we all ran outside. Many of the kids got picked up by their parents, and so did 2 of the kids in the play. However, me and most of the others stayed to help calm everyone down. It turns out that somebody called our school district and threatened to shoot up every school in the district. Since we've gone through 3 other hard lockdowns last year, this year I'm now a sophomore and we started school in August. It's now the first week of September and we had our first one. Now, because of everything last year at this point, I've had a bulletproof plate in my backpack. Either way, these school lockdown experiences are very scary, and every single one of them should be taken seriously, because you never know when there will be a real one. One day, my cousin, my brother, and me were home alone while my mom was at work. We were just chilling in our room when suddenly, my brother says, "Shh." So me and my cousin shut up and listen, and we hear bang, bang, bang. Oh, by the way, we had cabinets in front of our room door, and we heard those cabinets being opened gently but closed with a force, making a bang sound. So at first, my cousin thinks it's my mom, because maybe my mom came home early, so we called her. The first thing that should have given me the hint that it wasn't my mom was because we didn't hear a ringtone. My mom picks up the phone, and the noise stops. That's what my cousin asked my mom, "Are you making that noise?" And her response made my heart drop, and I'm pretty sure it made my brother and cousin's hearts drop as well. My mom said, "No, I'm not home. Why?" And we told her, but she played it off as we were just scaring each other, but we weren't. Anyways, we barricaded the door, and we just sit there in the room, just listening to the noise for a couple of minutes, until my cousin calls her friend and asks her friend what we should do. And her friend says, "Call the police." And our smart little selves didn't. I really wish we would have taken that advice, but we didn't. So we hung up a little bit later. After a while, my brother gets the courage to go out there with a door tennis racket to see if he can find something or someone. And he leaves and says that I'll be back in a minute. Literally about a minute later, my brother comes back sprinting, and that's what scared me the most. But we asked him what he saw out there, and my brother said, "I saw a tall, dark figure at the other end of the house, out of the corner of my eye." That scared the living shit out of all of us. We then barricaded the door again, and we waited for, I'd probably say, another hour, but it felt like 5. And my mom came home, and she asked us if we wanted to stay home or go get dinner with her. We rushed right out that door with her. I don't know what that intruder's plan was, but he never came back. I was a teacher and a basketball coach at my local school for 18 years roughly. I enjoyed my job and I loved coaching my players and teaching them my favorite pastime of basketball. I ended up quitting to start my own business, but to this day I wonder why I didn't quit after this moment. Which still makes me shudder to this day, recalling the moment. Our school is notorious for being haunted. Basically a story about a kid named Pete. Back in the 80s, apparently an 8-year-old child died in the cafeteria by choking on food. Very sad, I know, but ever since then, there had been stories over the years. Like a janitor working in a classroom who left her mop bucket in the hall, only to find it down the hall from where she was. Or the elevator randomly going to floors, even though we had gotten a new elevator, thinking the old one was the problem. Now I do believe in ghosts, but I've always thought these stories were too good to be true. Oh, how wrong I was, and never thought I'd add to the stories. I had just an average day at school, which gets done around 2:30. We then had basketball practice, and this was more towards the summer going into fall, so we had longer practices at this point. About 5:30 when we were done, I figured I'd stay late and work on some schoolwork, while also working on some plays I wanted to add to tomorrow's practice. My wife ended up driving by and stopped in with me, so she also witnessed this moment. At this point, it was around 9 p.m. I was busy working on my agenda for class, and my wife was telling me about a shopping trip she was taking the next day. Right then, we heard what sounded like sneakers walking down the hall, almost as if they were wet. I went out to look down the hall, but I didn't see anything, thinking maybe the janitor was here and dismissing it immediately. I went back to my desk, which I should point out faces the door, and the door had that small window that most school doors have. I heard the sneakers again and got up to close the door, again dismissing it going back to work. But once again, even with the doors closed, I heard the sneakers. But hearing them now, I knew they were in my hall, because of the closed door that would usually block the noise. So I just stared at the door, waiting for the person to walk by. Just then, I saw what I thought was a man in a hoodie, but I couldn't see his face. Until I looked closer, there was no body. Like I knew I saw the head, but there was not a body to pair with it. My wife saw my horrified look and became distressed, asking what was wrong. I didn't say anything until I heard those sneakers go away. I then told her to run and we bolted out the door. We were on the 3rd floor and the stairs were practically right by my class. Going down, I ended up tripping down the stairs, just one flight. But laying there, I started to hear the sneakers again, so I ignored the pain and kept going. We got to the exit and I hopped in my truck, noticing that no one had followed us. For a second, I breathed a sigh of relief and kind of laughed, thinking I was just tired and seeing things. But after I said that, my wife screamed and pointed. I looked back at the door and we saw the hooded figure. I couldn't see a head, let alone a face, but I could see the hood up with an outline and a skull. It then looked like it was moving its head up, then down, repeating as if it was saying yes. I just sped away and got out of there as fast as I could. I barely slept that night, and I kept looking around my room thinking I saw that dreaded hood. The next day at school, I asked the night janitor, who would come in around noon, if she worked last night. She said no, that she took last night off as one of her sick days. I then told her the story. Even she, who would usually laugh at the stories, had some run-ins with Pete. So I don't know what would have happened that night if that figure would have caught up with us, but I'm very okay if I never find out.